All right, so today we are going to be going over simplifying square roots. So for our first example here, we are looking at the square root of 28. Now, with simplifying square roots, you always want to first break down the number underneath your square root by using prime factorization. So what is prime factorization? Well, prime factorization is breaking down whatever number is underneath your square root until we get it down into all the prime possible numbers that multiply to 28. So first you want to start off with just picking any two numbers that you know will multiply to that number. So 28, two multiples of that are 4 and 7. Well, 7 we know is a prime number. And again, a prime number is any number that only has two multiples, 1 and itself. So 1 times 7 will give us 7. There are no two whole numbers outside of those two that will work for 7. So 7 is a prime number. Up next, 4. Well, 4 breaks down into 2 and 2. 2 and 2 are both prime numbers. So we now have a pair of prime numbers here and then a lone prime number there. So pair of 2's and then 1 7. Now, with that pair of 2's, whatever pair of numbers you have, 2 and 2, you just move that number out in front, and whichever number is all by itself, whichever number does not have a buddy, in this case 7, well, that stays underneath your square root there. So 2 square root of 7 is the simplified form of the square root of 28. So now, let's take a look at another example. Example 2. Here, we have 5 times the square root of 20. Again, we are looking for two multiples that will give us 20. That is 2 and 10. Now, 2 is a prime number, but 10 is not. We could break 10 down into 2 and 5. So here, we have our pair of 2's, and then that 5 all by itself. So we already have a 5 in front of the square root, so this means we need to move the 2 out in front, and that will be getting multiplied with that 5 already there. Now underneath our square root, we take the lone 5 here, and that is going underneath our square root. So now all we need to do is multiply 2 times 5 there. We will get 10 times the square root of 5 for your final answer there. All right, continuing on. Example 3. We have negative 3 square root of 125. Now, 125. Maybe off the top of my head, I don't know what divides into that right away. So let's think about it. 125, it ends in a 5. So that means 125 is also divisible by 5. So using your calculator on your phone or wherever, divide 5 into 125. We figure out 5 times 25 will give us 125. Dividing 5 into 125 will just give you 25. Therefore, 5 times 25 gives you 125. Now, 5 is a prime number. I could break 25 down into 5 and 5, because 5 times 5 gives us 25. So now, we have a pair of 5's here, and a 5 all by itself. So, again, move the 5 out in front, multiply that with negative 3, and then this 5 here is all by itself, so that means it stays underneath our square root. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15 times the square root of 5 for your final answer there in example 3. Now, let's take a look at one more example. Here, for example 4, we have 4 times the square root of 24. Now, For all the previous examples, we've seen one prime number get left underneath our square root. Well, what happens if we have more than one? That's what we're going to find out here. So again, always start off with the prime factorization of the number underneath your square root. So in this case, 24, that's going to get broken down into 2 and 12. 12 is going to get broken down into 2 and 6. 6 will get broken down into 2 and 3. Now here, I have a pair of 2's. I have a 2 and a 3. The 2 and the 3, they do not have a buddy. In order for them to have a buddy, it has to be a pair of the same type of number. For example, 2 and 2 here, 5 and 5, and example 3 there. Those are the numbers that can get pulled out in front. So we have 2 get pulled out in front. That gets multiplied by 4. And then underneath our square root, you just take those two prime numbers there, 2 and 6, or 2 and 3, excuse me. They get multiplied together underneath your square root to get 6. So 2 times 4, we have 8 out in front, times the square root of 2 times 3. We're getting 6 for your final answer there in example 4.